A request to transfer 30 beluga whales from Marineland to an aquarium in China has been shot down, leaving the fate of the mammals up in the air. Canada's fisheries minister denied that request, arguing that the move would mean a life of continued captivity for the whales, adding that the decision is consistent with the law Canada passed in 2019 banning whale and dolphin captivity and using them in entertainment shows. 20 whales have died at the Niagara Falls attraction since 2019. The remaining belugas are the last captive whales in Canada and were put up for sale by Marineland back in 2023. The park, which closed to the public last summer, said it was disappointed by the government's decision and that it is struggling financially to care for the whales. So what happens now to the 30 belugas left in captivity, and what options are even available? Here to discuss this is Andrew Trites, the director of the Marine Mammal Research Unit at the University of British Columbia. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start at the very beginning here. We did note the financial constraints Marineland had stated, but why can't the belugas stay at Marineland?
The problem is that there's no means to support them there. The Marineland is closing. My understanding is that just the marine mammals that are remaining, the facility can no longer support them or care for them adequately. It's time for them to move.
We also noted the government denying the request to move them to China. So what options are available? Are there even other options?
Unfortunately, there don't seem to be any options. Well, actually, there are two, but none of them seem very realistic. One would be to see the animals move to another facility within Canada, but there's nowhere else for them to go. It's currently not allowed to keep marine mammals, or at least whales, in captivity. Another possibility might be to move them to a sanctuary, but there are no sanctuaries available for 30 whales to be moved to. And finally, the only other option would be for them to stay permanently at Marineland, but turn it into a palliative care center. But that would require someone to support it, and that also means that the taxpayer would have to step in and commit perhaps over $2 million per month for their care for the next 30 to 50 years. So none of those seem like very realistic options.
I want to go back to the taxpayer, the role of the taxpayer here. I'm wondering, the belugas aren't the only animals left at Marineland. What sort of precedents would this set?
Well, I guess the script is still being written on that. We don't know what the precedents are. Clearly, we have to think about what's in the best interest of the animals for their long-term care. We have a responsibility, I think, as a society to do what's best for them. But I'm really concerned that the only option that one's going to be faced with at the end will be to euthanize them. And I think that is totally unacceptable.
How much time do you think realistically Marineland and the government have to find a new home for these belugas and avoid that option?
Well, it could be as simple as Marineland declaring bankruptcy and walking away from it, which case the government of Ontario has to step in and take over responsibility. And then who knows what could happen? It's almost like a disaster in the making. It would just take a series of animals to start getting sick and dying, and all that then becomes the responsibility of Ontario, and the fingers will be pointed. Clearly something has to be done, and it's not acceptable just to push the stop button without coming up with alternative options.
I know previously there was talk about perhaps having a sanctuary in Nova Scotia here. It would be North America's first whale sanctuary. It's been called an ambitious plan, but is that feasible?
From what I understand, there's not community acceptance. Some members of the community are open to this, but others are opposed to it. It appears to be a project that's stalled, but even if it had a green light to move ahead, it would take years to get it set up, and there probably will never be equipped to handle 30 animals. It's so many.
So I wanted to ask you about kind of going back to the belugas now, as we're looking at options, what's available here. Who is it going to fall on? Is it going to fall on Marineland? Is it going to fall on the government?
My understanding is that it will fall on the provincial government. They're going to be ultimately responsible, except their hands are tied because anything they might want to do will be regulated by federal laws. And so I'm afraid that the people in Ontario are caught between a rock and a hard place.
Andrew, someone like you who's working in research, you're quite involved in the field here. What's your biggest concern? I know you listed a couple of them, but what's your biggest concern as we continue being faced with this dilemma?
I think one of the concerns is that, one of the reasons or the rationales I heard about not seeing the animals moved is, well, we don't want them being used for entertainment purposes. Well, I think that beluga whales or all marine mammals in captivity serve more than just entertainment. They're a very important part of public education. In the case here of belugas, they have a very important story to tell, which is that climate change is happening. The species is threatened in the Arctic, and this becomes a gateway for that conversation for people to take responsibility and figure out how they are, in fact, affecting belugas in the wild. The other piece of this is that research, so much of what we know about marine mammals and still need to know about them comes from studying them under controlled situations. And we need to know things like body sizes, growth, how much food do they need, their ability to digest different types of fish that they're going to be exposed to with climate change. We can only determine those things by working with belugas such as these ones. And I think that they can play a very important role in helping to conserve their wild counterparts.
This is an issue that's raising concerns, but it's also bringing about a lot of questions, some of which you raised right there. Andrew Trites, the director of the Marine Mammal Research Unit at the University of British Columbia. We thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.